G'day, Prizzy! How are we doing tonight? Excellent, excellent. So good to see you here. So good to be sharing this experience with you all. My name is Jonny, and sometimes when I say that, people want to be like, here's Jonny.
Here's Jonny!
Don't. Why not say something like, how is Jonny? I'm pretty good. It's good to see so many of my friends here. Or, why is Jonny? Well, when a mum and dad love each other very much, they decide to do something that I'm not going to be talking about this evening. Because I was told to talk about things that I have experience with. See, I'm not a researcher. I don't study the birds and the bees. I find it really hard to get primary data. But I do see the birds and bees every day at work because I work at the Queensland Museum, Kurilpa, where in the Spark Lab Science Centre, where I am a STEM experience officer. Now, you might have been to science centres before. They're these wonderful places where science comes out of the classroom and into our hands to be explored and experienced with our own senses, where things bubble and swing, twist, flow and fly, and where kids giggle and sing, pee their pants, throw up and cry. It's wonderful to see biology in action. Not so wonderful to smell it. Now, science centers are a lot of fun, but they're not just about fun, which is why they hire people like me. But I know how to... See, I know how to have fun, but it's my job to help turn that fun into learning. And one of the ways that science centers do this is by hiring people that they call explainers. And I know what you might be thinking. I'd probably make an excellent explainer. After all, I fit all the key criteria. Firstly, I'm a man. Explaining's in my DNA. Secondly, I love the sound of my own voice, and I'm overly confident. And finally, I really have little to no expertise in what I'm normally talking about. I'm not a physicist, nor a chemist, or an engineer, and my dad makes that very clear. But I'm also not an explainer. So I've come to discover that that's actually a good thing, because what I've found out is that just having a man explain science at you is not the best way of learning. Like many of you, I had to learn that through experience. Unfortunately for you, someone gave me a platform. And so now I'm going to use that to explain to you how my experience taught me not to explain so much. So let me take you back to when I first began in Spark Lab. I'd be walking the floors, on patrol, looking out for someone that I suspected was having fun, but not learning. See, I went through a little bit of an explainer phase, I'll admit it. And I felt this expectation that I had to know things and had to share them as much as I possibly could. So when I found a target, I would approach them with a learning opportunity. And what that meant was that as they were having fun trying to enjoy themselves on an exhibit, I would rattle off every single slightly relevant scientific fact that popped into my head. And I would find that my audience would appear to be enjoying themselves. They'd be smiling, nodding, making very polite eye contact as they moved further and further away from me. And that's really not what my aim was. See, I was hoping to help people approach learning opportunities. Fortunately, I get to work with kids. And while kids love learning science, I've discovered they're not nearly as concerned about appearing polite. So if you would try and approach a kid with one of those poorly formed learning opportunities, they'll do one of several things. They may ignore you entirely, They could poke their tongue out at you and or give you the finger. Or they might just activate sports mode on their Crocs and run away. Horrible for my confidence, great for my professional development, and weirdly reminiscent of my dating life. But I reflected on these experiences and I realized that I don't want to be like some Goosebumps monster chasing kids around. Like, you will learn. No. So I did what any sane person would do, and I went back to my role description. And I poured through that thing, looking for what I was supposed to be doing instead. What I found was not a single mention of the word explain. In fact, they didn't really require me to know everything. They just needed someone that would help people to engage with it. See, I don't require a PhD, nor a master's. All they were really looking for was an eligible bachelor. Ladies. I have a Bachelor of Science. Employers. Specifically in psychology. Employers. So I've been hanging out with this guy a lot. And one of the things that I learned from that degree is this one here, the experiential learning cycle. Now, it's pretty self-explanatory, but the combination of this microphone and my Y chromosome has me relapsing. So let me see if I can get this condescending tone right. It's basically a cycle through which you learn through experience. No, I see why you guys hate that guy. But I thought it would be fun if we explored this from the perspective of one of my explainer phase victims. So you're having a fun time engaging with one of our exhibits when some freaking nerd comes up and starts smothering you in science until either your ears bleed or you manage to escape. You reflect on this experience, noting that you were annoyed and uncomfortable, and it may lead you to conclude that learning science is not fun. This may lead you to experiment with doing other things or avoiding it entirely, just like my dating life. Now let's see what I would do now instead. You're having a fun time engaging with one of our exhibits when some freaking nerd approaches you, except this time, rather than coming at you with facts, he comes with questions or challenges or games that you could try, different ways of engaging that you might not have thought about yourself. Now you're thinking a little bit more about what might be going on behind the scenes of these exhibits, and you're starting to conclude some of the scientific principles behind them and how they might apply to the world around you. This starts to make you think, maybe I can experiment with this, play with it myself, and ultimately is a more positive experience. And you may seek out further learning opportunities in the future. So this is clearly a much more effective way of engaging, but I'm not the first person to think about it. You don't need a psych degree to figure this out. You don't really need a psych degree to figure anything out. But, in Spark Lab, we actually have our own learning cycle. We call it our inquiry-based learning model, the Be a Scientist cycle. It's a little bit different. It's more based in the scientific method, and it has colored boxes and gray arrows. So actually really different. It's, a bit like comparing apples to oranges. It can't be done. They're not both fruit. No, okay. So I don't have time this evening to explain all the specifics about how I might apply this at work, but I think it'd probably be better if you came in and experienced it for yourself. But if you were to come and do that, we could do fun things like experiment with what happens when you mix two chemicals together. Like, I get really excited about that. Or we could use our science on a sphere to explore our planet, Earth. Or maybe we can go to other planets like Mars, or Jupiter, or Uranus. Not very exciting, that one. But how about my anus? No, I'm just kidding. That's not my bottom. That's the bottom of Saturn, a different gas giant. It does have quite the ring. This is my anus. Please excuse my childish jokes, but here's the real Jonny. And here's what Jonny would love you to take away from this chat. If you want people to approach your learning opportunities, you should try and reflect on how you might be able to build the learning into the experiences that they're already seeking. Whether it's for your students or your kids or yourself, and if it's in your work or your play or a comedy night. If you meet people where they want to be, it's a more positive experience for everyone. Thank you very much for listening to this mansplanation of my guerrilla teaching methods, and I'll now hand over to the experts.